All right, and we're back once again with the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs, whether it's the Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Game Source, or also as well Inside Sports Fantasy Football. I cannot thank you enough for listening to us. Also, cannot thank enough to everybody out there that's listening to us on the RTF Sports Network. Check out all the great sports programming today at rtfsportsnetwork.com. Plus also the Discover Community Network. Cannot thank everyone there, including Troy, just doing a great job with all the stuff that you're doing all over the world with the Discover Community Network, and cannot thank enough for being a part of it. Great weekend turned into a big letdown. And you know what? I don't want to say I told you so, but I did tell and actually was on the air, I did say that there would be a letdown because you have two huge games on Friday and Sunday against the two best teams in the NBA. And, you know, when you have all that emotion built up and you're not in a finals or playoff situation where you're facing the same team at best 4 out of 7, you have a tendency, and you see on the schedule, a much lesser team in record-wise, you have a tendency to let down as human beings. This is not something that is just one sports team or another. It's just a human thing to do after you have that amp up for 2-3 days like they did. And unfortunately it happened. I just told, as I said on the air to Laker Tom, I said that they would only have, you would see a sluggish first half. I didn't foresee it being an entire 4 quarters, but it did. And unfortunately, the Lakers did lose 104-102 to the Brooklyn Nets. Anthony Davis could not get that three-pointer at the last second to go ahead and hit. And you know what? The Lakers put themselves in that situation with careless turnovers, all the issues that seemed to rear their head in their losses came to a head. But there is still more to talk about, including the great weekend, some other serious issues as well, and of course to talk about it with me today is a good man indeed. You got to check out what he's doing with his good friends Big Haas and Jason Dutch on Voice from the Underground, the podcast. Catch it all, or catch it everywhere you can, where you get your podcasts. It is a good man indeed, Mr. TJ Johnson. TJ, I'm just so glad to have you back. I'm hoping everybody is healthy out there where you are, and I'm just continued health and prosperity to you and your family.
Amen, brother. I appreciate that. I it's kind of funny. I think I probably do this one more than I do Voice from the Underground right now, just because of the time those guys record, man. We record so late.
I know. Hey,
so early.
It's crazy, Jason. What can I say? It's crazy, Jason Dutch. But, we will go into the whole seriousness stuff on the other side of this podcast. I want to go ahead and just talk about the upfronts right now. I mean, you had a chance to see the great games this weekend and also the letdown this past Wednesday. I spoke at length with Laker Tom about my thoughts on LeBron's performance, AD's performance, and the rest of the team and how they came together for those two games, and to show everyone out there in the NBA exactly how good the Lakers are and how good they match up against the best teams in the NBA. But I want you to go ahead and talk into your own words how that experience was like for you for both those games, and then unfortunately how it led into Wednesday's loss against the Nets as well.
Well, I didn't get a chance to listen to your show prior to, but I'd have to imagine that you said something to the effect of how awesome those wins were, but keep in mind and keep in perspective that with such magnificent wins, with such heart-racing, emotional, just intense wins, that there's going to be a letdown at some point, right? I'd imagine that's something that you said. Well,
it's just human nature. It's just the way we are human nature. There's always a come down.
Exactly. So with that being said, I too was extremely excited about the game against the Bucks, 113-103. Then you top that off with the game against those Clippers, and you beat them too, 112-103. So it's like, all right, we got some momentum going now. We're starting to finally garner the respect that our roster should have been given from jump. Now, we already were guaranteed to make the playoffs. I mean, everybody, I don't think there was any NBA analyst or any NBA pundit who, barring any injury, didn't expect the Lakers to be in the playoffs. I don't know if they expected us to be the number 1 seed in the West going into the playoffs, but they expected us to make the playoffs. So that wasn't anything new. But I think what's starting to happen now is that we're legit title contenders now, but we are like the title contender now. Like I think they've finally taken over in the power rankings, the number 1 spot from the Clippers. So we are now.
That's only the Athletic. I mean, the ESPN, they're still number 2. I know Laker Tom was just like, what? And right now they're still number 2.
Surprise!
I know. I'm just saying.
No, I hear you.
I think they should have been number 1, but at this point in time, it's just all conjecture at this point.
Yeah.
The message was sent loud and clear.
Absolutely.
To the rest of the NBA.
Here.
The
That's
Lakers were considered by many of these pundits a distant number 3. They are right in the mix, and it's all about matchups. It's all about how it is in game, the decision making by the coaches, the chess match that goes on. Whoever makes the right decisions between any of these 3 teams is going to be the victor, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it boils down to. It's about decision making. It's about the coaching. It's about matchups, as you mentioned. So in those games, I think what we got a chance to notice or see from LeBron is him turn it on to a different level. Everybody always kind of just makes the mention that LeBron, he's always consistent, right? He's like a heat pump. He's consistent. He's going to give you a certain amount of points, a certain amount of effort, a certain amount of energy every game. He's also going to know how to coast until getting to the playoffs. And then that's when he turns it on, similar to like a playoff Rondo, but obviously playoff LeBron is much more consistent than your Rajon Rondo. I'm not comparing the two, but just comparing their styles of approaching the seasons, right? But the thing that we've noticed about LeBron, and we've talked about it ad nauseum here on Lakers Fast Break podcast, we've talked about the fact that LeBron has turned it on from the jump and just doesn't seem to want to relent. He doesn't seem to want to take his foot off the gas, which is awesome, but it's concerning for a 15-year NBA player who's now 35 years of age, going into his 15th year.
No, he's in 17.
17. All right, so 17th year.
Don't sell him short, man.
Well, that just further proves my point. His 17th season in the NBA, leading the league in assists, as a lead, as a front runner. I shouldn't say front runner, but is up there in the MVP candidacy. He's just playing inspired, phenomenal basketball. And at the tender age of 35, like this guy is still doing it, and he's still putting everybody else on notice that this is still my game until I give it up. I'm very similar to what a Michael Jordan did in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, still letting people know, hey, this is still my game. This is what I do. This is my team. This is how I get down. So watching these games, seeing LeBron kind of turn it on, and seeing LeBron do what all of us have expected LeBron to do, but he just didn't seem to want to do it at first. He kind of started to settle for a jump shot in the beginning of this season, right? He was very much a jump shooter, or very much becoming a jump shooter. He's still shooting a great clip from the floor, but he seemed to want to prove that he has a jump shot. And my thing about him proving that he has a jump shot is this. That's great. That's phenomenal that you have a jump shot. That's one more weapon to add to your arsenal. He's got this 3-point shot now. I don't know where it came from, but he's got a 3-point jumper now, hitting 35-foot 3-point shots. I don't expect him to do that on a consistent basis, but the fact that he can do it, that's just another weapon that he has. It's just awesome to see these different layers of his game continue to evolve and continue to add on to what he's already got. However, in doing that, I just did not want to see LeBron lose what made LeBron LeBron. And that was being a freak of nature, being able to essentially place his will on whatever he wanted to do as far as getting to the paint. If he makes the decision to get to the basket, there's nobody in the league that can stop him. And he made that abundantly clear over this last weekend with Giannis, with Kawhi, anybody that they put in front of him. LeBron has no problem getting to the rack at will. And I want it. I was excited because he didn't let people forget that. I think I started to forget it because of how, he's kind of settled more into jump shots. He's kind of settled more into this little fadeaway from 15 that he's got, the little one-legged fadeaway that he does, and the little back to the basket turnaround fade. Like he's got these other arsenals of moves now that he's been working on. Very similar to what Kobe Bryant did. Very similar to what Michael Jordan did towards the twilight of their careers, as far as just making it go a little bit longer. I was just concerned that he was leaning on that too much. This weekend, he showed those. He still showed those jump shots. He still showed the turnaround. He still showed the fadeaway. But he also took it to the rack and did so with reckless abandon. And it was exciting to see. It was inspired basketball. I remember I was at a restaurant with my wife and my in-laws. And right before the Lakers-Clippers game, they showed the Christmas Day game. how the Lakers lost that game. And so we're watching that, and I'm looking at it, and it's just this other guy at the bar. We're watching it, and he says, "Is that the game?" I said, "It better not be. I can't see my Lakers lose right like that right now. Like, no, this is the Christmas Day game." But he said, "Well, I don't know if they're gonna be able to get past the Clippers this time." And you see what happened right there. And I said, "Well, we're gonna find out." And lo and behold, Avery Bradley. I don't know where he got it from, but he just went off. I don't think anybody anticipated Avery Bradley going off the way that Avery Bradley did. And what's awesome about that is that shows something that the people have been saying that the Lakers do not really have, and that's depth. They don't have that third scoring option. And on a consistent basis, that most people are probably right. They really don't. You've got LeBron, you've got AD. Those are your 1 and 2. Those are your you know that you're going to get your 1 and 2 from those two, right? Depending on, somebody could be number one day and number 2 the other day, and it's okay. We were always concerned with who's going to be that third scoring option. And that third scoring option can either come from Kuzma, can come from Bradley. I don't think Morris is panning out the way people expected him to pan out, but it's still early. We just got him. There's time to become ingratiated in the system. Let's not rush him in. Same thing with Deion Waiters. When he finally plays, let's allow him some time to get acclimated with the system. And I hope that he is not as mercurial as he has been in the last couple seasons that he's been with different teams. But I'm sure you got thoughts on that too. But we'll say that. We'll get to that in a second. But
well, basically, for me, when it comes to Waiters Island and going on to Waiters Island, as long as in the last 15 games, you give him some time to go ahead and, like you said, acclimate himself. Plus, Markieff Morris, he needs time to acclimate himself a little bit more. I mean, he's been thrown out there as a small ball 5 on more than one occasion as a power forward, him and Kuzma. But it's helped Kuzma because Kuzma is now able to play defense and match up better against guards or forwards that are put against him. And his defense has improved dramatically over the past few weeks, and especially within that past week. Those 2 games that were crucial for the Lakers to win, he was a vital part. Not because of his shooting, which everybody thought had to be something that he had to get his act together on, but his defense, his rebounding, and the other things, the intangibles that we needed him to take care of, that we thought he could never be a part of, or he could never really do well, especially on the defensive end, because, this time, at the beginning of the year, we were, he was just a joke defensively. That's, pretty much thought of. He was so far down on his defensive rating, but you look at him now, the way he plays defense, time in and time again against some of the better players in the league. He's really acquitting himself on that end of the floor, and that is allowing him to stay on the floor despite the fact he can't hit a 3. Like I said, the Laker Tom, he can't hit a 3 to save his life right now.
Yeah, no, he's definitely struggling in that shot. But yes, like you said, it's allowing him the opportunity to focus on other essential parts of the game that are going to keep you with playing time. It's going to keep you on the court and keep you on the court during important moments like in the fourth quarter, down 5 points, down 10 points, whatever the number is. It's going to keep you on the court being able to make defensive stops, which is something that a lot of people don't want to hang their hats on anymore, but it's just as important as making offensive plays as well. Saying all that to say, these 2 games against the Clippers and against the Bucks were very, very statement-driven games, right? And like you alluded to earlier in this episode, like you alluded to, or like you spoke about during the last episode, it's human nature to naturally have a letdown. At some point, you've got to come off the high. At some point, you've got to come back down to regular level. I don't know what you want to call it, but you tend to look at the Brooklyn Nets and see a team that's not on your level, right? And I don't think anybody is putting that mildly. I don't think anybody would say that that's a slight to Brooklyn, because Brooklyn is just not. They're not at that level right now. So I think it's natural for a team who has playoff aspirations, who has championship aspirations, to look at different games throughout the course of an 82-game season and have different moments where you can kind of take your foot off the pedal, so to speak. I think the Lakers did that against the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that in doing that, I'm not super concerned about that loss. It's kind of just okay, they lost. It's a slap in the face, get it back right, and get back on the road. I don't think anybody's going to really hang their head on that loss. But I'm from the mindset of, if I see a team, in my Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality, if you will, I just want to take you out. Move on to the next one, take you out as quickly as possible, and not really play games with you. Everybody's not built like that, and these Lakers aren't built like that, so to speak. And It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I don't like it, but it's just one game. I'm not gonna. What we did this weekend was far and above what this one loss meant. I don't think it means anything. What I do want to highlight is that I feel like LeBron should still took the last shot. I don't feel like he should have gave that shot up. But
it's a shame he missed that layup. That was just
yes.
a gimme.
Yes, it was. And the fact that he missed that layup was mind-boggling, considering the fact that he never misses that layup. But it happens. It happened, and it is what it is. But you get him in a 7-game series. That I'm not concerned about that.
Well, there is a lot to look forward to still with the Lakers. I don't think with a loss like this that they should seriously, unless it happens, unless it falls into place, unless Giannis Antetokounmpo continues with this injury longer than what they want, or they want to hold him out longer, and Milwaukee continues to struggle. Although feasting on that Eastern Conference once they get back from their West Coast trip should probably alleviate a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, that the Lakers, if they go ahead and get right back on the horse, so to speak, and win against Houston, and get back right where they left off, then it'll just be like you said, just a blip, just a momentary blip, and nothing to be concerned about. What I'm worried about is when I see those type of games, that there's not that extra, and this is where those pundits come out. There needs to be a consistent third guy, and like we had talked about in the earlier part of the season, that's where that comes into play, where you just LeBron and AD are just doing okay or not as okay as they normally do,
right? And
the rest of the team is just not performing up to snuff. That's where you need that one extra guy to come up and say, I'm going to give you 20 right now. And they just don't have that consistently on the team. And in a playoff series, you may or may not be able to mask that or hide that fact because you're playing LeBron and AD 40, 45 minutes a game. But there is going to be that point in time where you need some of these role players to pick up a little bit more consistency. And I know that's the big concern amongst Lakers fans is who else is going to pick up the slack when it's needed. I mean, this is a one-game blip. I'm hoping that that's the case, and I'm thinking that's going to be the case. But still, when they have these type of momentary blips against Brooklyn, against Orlando, these type of games where they should have won, it just seems to me that they those type of things, those type of flaws, those type of warts stick out even more.
They do, and it gives those pundits and those analysts a chance to say, "Aha, I told you so. I told you guys need a third option that's going to be able to give you 20, 25 points a game, such, etc." It's not a surprise. The Lakers do need that consistent option. I just feel, and this could just me being the Lakers fan that I am, that the Lakers are a lot deeper than people give them credit for being, and that they have a lot more to offer than people give them credit for having. You look at a performance like Avery Bradley had. I don't think anybody anticipated Avery Bradley going off the way he did. I also don't think anybody anticipated Patrick Beverley's play dropping the way it's been dropping as of late. I mean, it wasn't just that game that he's been having issues. His minutes have been on a steady decline for about the last 2 months now. It's been a little weird. But saying all that to say, I'm not concerned. Again, unless they start having consistent games where they're losing to teams on a regular basis. They've got this East Coast trip, as you mentioned, coming up that should be able to feast and get their fill and kind of get fine-tuned ready for these first round of the playoffs coming up. So I'm not concerned about it, but unless they start, dropping a couple more of these games, I don't see them dropping the game against Houston. I'm not. I don't think it's been any secret that I've never been high on Houston. I'm still not high on Houston. I've never been high on D'Antoni. Still not high on D'Antoni. Like, I'm not concerned. James Harden, I'm just not concerned. Westbrook, I'm just not concerned. This is just not a team that concerns me. As far as anybody after that, we'll still look to see. Denver could pose a bit of a problem. I think Murray was robbed on that dunk the other night, but that's a horse of another color for right now. And then you got Utah coming up in back-to-back games, followed by Charlotte, Detroit, Toronto. I don't see. They should be eating pretty good for the remainder. They should be eating pretty good for quite a while now.
Let's hope that's the case. And again, it's a momentary blip for the Lakers as they did fall to the Nets. They do have Houston coming up, and Houston has been, after an early season, actually an early 8-game winning streak that was really riding high, and Westbrook was playing at a level that a lot of people said he had never reached before, even in this MVP year. And a lot of people were talking about how well they were playing, and the small ball was working. Then they hit the skids with 4 losses in a row. It's very hard to figure them out if this small ball is actually going to work out. Or, for me, I think it's all about matchups. Who they need to match up against is who they're going to either prosper or fail against. I think the Lakers will eventually figure out Houston. I know they didn't the first time around. They debuted the small ball type deal, but I think at some point in time that they will figure it out. I think it's going to start on Thursday. I think they're going to go ahead and be more motivated, especially what happened on Tuesday with the Nets, that they're going to go ahead and be able to pull this out in nice fashion. And you're right. They go back out on the road. They've got several games, including games against Utah in the near future. They're doing actually a back-to-back with Utah, one home and one away. And then they've got several road games after that. So I'm looking at that perspective that the Lakers will go ahead and close out the season strong. But as I was talking about with Laker Tom, before we head on to more serious issues, and that is this, the thought of going after the overall best record, and also you weigh that against the rest that you should be giving LeBron and AD and some of the maybe more injured or more fragile members of the Lakers team right now. What are your thoughts on that? Should they be going all out for the NBA's top record? Should they be going all out for home court advantage throughout the entire playoffs, or should they be more mindful in what they're doing? I think they should, especially the fact that LeBron's in the 17th year, AD is fragile, to say the least. We've seen him already several times this year get like owies, and we're like, oh my goodness, he could be out for 2 weeks. He's actually has been out for 2 weeks when he fell on his derriere, so to speak.
Yep.
So I want to hear your thoughts on the balance between, going after that best record and maybe leaning on the side of load management, for lack of a better term.
I have to be really careful with this, because I've always maintained that if you're able to play, you should play. That's just the mindset that I've always had. That's the mindset that I've always respected from the NBA, from the players in the NBA, the Michael Jordans and the old school players, the Kobe Bryants, that had this mentality of, if you got the ability to go out there and perform and play for these people that have paid their money to see you perform and play, then you should. You should be out there and continue to give out the best possible product, because these fans are filling your stadiums to see you perform. But if the fans are not coming to see you perform, if the fans are not filling the stadiums, if you're just playing for the sake of playing, if you're just playing for the sake of record, if you're just playing because it's another game on the calendar, I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I still feel like you should. If the fans are not going to be able to come see you play, which is obviously something that we'll kind of get into, or we're alluding to a little bit later on, the fans are going to get to come see you play, then I don't know if I have that same level of desire to have the best players playing every game, if the fans are going to be able to come out there and watch you do that. Because that's kind of what this boils down to. If I'm a fan and I paid $60, $100, whatever the amount of money I paid for this ticket to come out there and watch you perform, then you should be out there performing. That's the way I look at it. And I feel like that's the way a lot of the players are looking at it, especially with some of the comments that LeBron had made earlier last week in regards to playing with fans or without fans in the stadium. So if you're there, I feel like they should be playing. Absolutely, because that's what these people are paying their money to see. But going into what we're going to be discussing, if fans are not going to be in attendance for these games, then I'm not as high on our star talent who we're going to need in playoffs to be putting themselves on the line like that. I'm just being honest.
No, that's great opinion right there for you, and I completely understand that. And LeBron's actually he was very initially reluctant to say. He said he would clearly not play in a game where there's no fans last week. Mm-hmm. That was his tone last week. Mm-hmm. But understanding, I think he actually sat down and took a look at it a little bit more seriously about how effective this coronavirus is in its spreading. That, for lack of a better way to describe it, it's very effective in the way it spreads right now. I mean, as of this, recording, we're talking over 100,000 people have been infected worldwide, and over 4,000 people have been killed. And the mortality rate right now is substantially higher than it is what it is with the common flu. I mean, people have been saying right and left, well, the flu kills more people. Yes, but more people have been infected with the flu each and every year.
It's all about the percentage.
By percentage, the mortality rate is substantially higher right now with this coronavirus. So that's why it's a serious issue. And we've heard the stories already about how one person can not only get not one, not two, but in New York, they're talking about one individual could be responsible for as many as 50 individuals getting sick. So you hear these horror stories and you see all these cancellations. And we're getting into this now about the coronavirus and how serious it is, because I know earlier today, as we're recording this, the people responsible for the health district in San Francisco have coordinated with the mayor and things of that nature to deem that you cannot be gathering in anything larger than 1,000 people at this point in time. So shortly thereafter, Golden State Warriors complied with that request and is saying from now on, until further notice, there's not going to be playing again. Any home game that they have, which right now I believe, from what I remember, was 7 games left, if I'm not mistaken, are not going to be playing against with any fans in the arena as they're playing, which for them is a big hit because they are the leading revenue generator because their fancy new arena, upwards almost $4 million per home game for them. So you do the math, they're going to be out it's for the rest of the season up to $28 million. So that is substantial. I mean, and you talked about the financial implications to everybody that works there, everybody that's related to working there, and everybody that is in the surrounding area that benefits from those home games. So that is a substantial amount of money that's being lost and the revenue that's being not generated at that point in time. Sure, it's still going to be on TV and all that, but the fiscal impact to that city alone for the San Francisco and area that's there is going to be it's terrible. It's going to be terrible. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for the NBA, because going forward, we're going to see more and more cities talk about it. Cleveland's been talking about it. There are other cities in New York, Miami, LA. A lot of these cities already have started that process about possibly considering doing the same thing. So I want to hear your thoughts. You wanted to talk about this at length in regards to the seriousness of this issue. I'm welcome to always talk about this subject because it is very, very important that people know that this is some serious stuff that's going on.
Well, absolutely. And, we can talk about this subject from a multitude of different angles. We could talk about as far as pop culture cosmos, E3 was just canceled.
Yep.
We know
Coachella was just canceled.
Coachella was just canceled.
South by Southwest, the Music Fest in Florida,
Tons of this stuff, and this is a real thing. So to go back to one of your earlier comments in regards to LeBron, I absolutely think LeBron took a very very knee-jerk reaction approach to it, almost very similar to a Donald Trump-esque response when it was just a knee-jerk, nope, we're not going to do it, I'm not going to have any part of it.
Very defiant.
Very defiant, which, you know what, I get it, because the truth of the matter is this: when you play a game of basketball and you're playing it at a high level the way LeBron James and the rest of the NBA play it at, you feed off of the fan energy, you feed off of the momentum of the arena, which is why, when we talk about things like if they're going to play and try to maintain home court advantage, it's actually a very important aspect and a very important guide or building a strategy, if you will, to playing a game of basketball, having that team, having that crowd behind you erupt for shots, that gives you the adrenaline, that gets your blood pumping. There are going to be certain aspects to the game of basketball that are not going to be present because there are not going to be fans in the arenas for these games. So you really kind of change the dynamic in which you're playing the game at when you do things like have games without fans or have games in situations that you are not typically accustomed to. So I think that it's going to be extremely difficult for an NBA player to adjust to playing the game of basketball in silence. And what I mean by in silence is there's not going to be an arena filled with fans chanting your name or screaming MVP or things of that nature. Now, we've all played pickup basketball at a YMCA where you can still hear people in the gym talking, and you don't think about it, but
or the squeakers squeaking. That's going to be
or
very
the sneakers
surreal.
squeaking. Absolutely. So it's going to be a weird thing, and then you're going to have these TV analysts who are used to making comments, and you hear the effect of the crowd. I can always think about hearing Marv Albert talk or attempt to talk during moments of such hypeness that you can't even get words out because it's just so loud in the arena. Those are going to be weird. Being able to feed off the energy of the crowd is not going to be there. So it's really going to be an interesting thing to see. It's going to be an interesting thing to navigate for an NBA player. I know I'd have a difficult time doing it, and I don't play NBA basketball, but I can only imagine how difficult that's going to be, not being able to feed off of somebody else. Now, in regards to the financial ramifications, as you kind of already alluded to, yes, there are going to be a lot of people who are affected by this. What I was listening to earlier today was, and I didn't get the entire clip, so it might be out of context, and that could have been why I felt the way I felt at that moment. But he was referring to the players having to take a hit due to this as well. And what I'm hoping that he was referring to is down the line and not right now. I'm hoping that he was referring to, in the next season or the next 2 seasons, players having to adjust their salaries based on the salary cap changing based on the amount of income that they have coming through their revenue. What I'm hoping is he was referring to is that. What I'm hoping he was not referring to is the fact that these players have to take a pay cut now because these fans are not going to be filling up the arenas because they're not allowed to do so. I love the collective bargaining aspect of the NBA. I love the way that they are engaging with each other now, the players union versus the owners. I think Adam Silver has done a remarkable job of keeping the lines of communication open at all times and not allowing there to become a bit of a stalemate in the way that sometimes his predecessor, while he would try to avoid that, it happened under his watch. So I commend for what he's done. And saying that to say, I think it's important that these players understand that, yes, you sign contracts that said that you're going to get X amount of money. You signed a contract saying that LeBron James, are playing for the Los Angeles Lakers for X amount of money per game, et cetera, et cetera. These contracts were based on the fact that there's a certain amount of revenue that you're going to be bringing in, right? So when the circumstances change, should the contract change as well? Well, yes and no. And here's why I say yes and no. The players are still out there playing. They're still out there performing. So if they're still out there doing what they're supposed to do as far as performing and playing the game of basketball at a high level, then you should still pay them accordingly. Now, I understand that the wordage is probably something along the lines of, the certain amount of revenue that the teams bring in, and that unless the players are getting something based on the back end of their current contracts or their current year based on the revenue, then no, you have to pay the players. You have to pay the players exactly what you said that you're going to pay them, because I'm sure there's insurance for things of this nature where you have moments where, that's what insurance is for. I don't know the intricacies of that. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't even pretend to know the intricacies of the ins and outs. But I will say is that businesses and business owners have insurance policies. These insurance policies, I have to imagine, range from things like fires and earthquakes and other natural disasters.
Well, hold on. Not all these insurance policies. For instance, like with South by Southwest, their insurance policy was not covered, so they're out.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
The coronavirus was one of the things that was not covered. I'm sure going forward, they will make sure that they will be more prepared. Yeah. But yes, it's all dependent, I think, on the insurance carrier and exactly. The foresight when you sign those insurance policies. Was a disease, a pandemic, as it's now being called by the World Health Organization, covered under said policy. But in the case of South by Southwest, unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
Yikes! Yeah, that's just like me not getting flood insurance in Florida. It's like, okay, well, this is something that you should probably get. You live in Florida, you might want to consider flood insurance.
I mean, most of these have covered like act of God, like you're talking about, as far as Mother Nature, things like that nature. But you don't think pandemic is one of those ones that it's like you check that box. It's up until now. Check that box. It's like way on the end, because the last time you had anything close to this was SARS in 2009. So you don't think anything like that's going to happen.
You don't allow your brain to go that way. And even with SARS, it was as serious as it was. It just didn't affect the world the way that this is seeming to affect the world. So I just it's a slippery slope. I really feel like the players' contracts are going to have to be renegotiated, or they're going to have some type of injecture saying, "Hey, look, the revenue has changed considerably after the goings on in China last season, and now currently with the revenue that's being lost now due to the coronavirus. You know, these contracts are going to have to be renegotiated." I feel like the players should be willing to accept that. But I also feel like there comes a point in time where the owners have to say, "Okay, well, I own the business, you know, so." As the owner, I'm going to be the one to take that hit. You know, I'm the one that signs these contracts. I'm the one that ultimately I'm the boss. So it should be up to me to take those hits. And if we have a contract signed, then I should not necessarily be allowed to just automatically adjust your contract due to it. You know, there should be a grace period and time to kind of get everything set forth and something that is agreed upon with the players union. And it can't just be a universal, I'm going to do whatever it is I want to do because I'm the owner. That you start getting very, very dangerous. You start doing things like that because now you just open the door to be able to say, well, when certain things happen, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it shouldn't be. I don't know that that's the verbiage that's in the contracts. Again, I'm not that guy. That's not my that's not my area of expertise in any way. I just know that at some point in time, the human aspect of it, there's got to be a give and take between both the owners and the players. And I'm hoping that cooler heads and humanity wins in this sort of situation.
Well, let's hope so, my friend, because it is a very concerning time. If you're not taking this seriously, I would beg you to reconsider at least thinking more about the things that you do in your daily life, because this is some serious stuff. I think, in my opinion, this is you know, and I'm sure you agree with me on that. This is some, you know, you as someone who, you know, as deals with this each and every day, you know, working where you work, you know, at Costco and all that. I'm just going to say this out now, right now for the public. It's some serious stuff. People are there and they're there, and people make jokes about how everybody's lining up at Costco and things of that nature. And I just experienced it today, just before we came on the air. But people are, you know, they're no longer making jokes about it like they were last week. They're concerned and they're scared, and they want to do what they can to protect their families.
Absolutely. I think the growing joke is that people are lining up their panic rooms with toilet paper, which, you know, I thought that was funny because, again, one of the first things that we ran out of was toilet paper and water. Obviously, sanitizer, Clorox disinfectant wipes, Kirkland brand disinfectant wipes. Those are the type of things that we ran out of quickly due to the panic buying that's going on through consumers. I would venture to say this, that I think even at first I'm guilty of not really taking it as serious. I'm considering the fact that its symptoms are very similar in symptoms to the flu, similar to a common cold. You know, it's one of those things that I didn't even really take as seriously at first. However, as we've seen recently with Italy being shut down, as we've seen with the cancellation of a lot of major events that go on every year, it starts to become a little more real. Even so real to the fact that in Lombard, Illinois, you know, where I used to live, they just had to shut down a school for you know, either a day or a couple of days. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, because somebody that was there had tested positive for the coronavirus. It was one person, I think it was a visitor, but they ended up shutting down a school because of it. And that's a little close to home. Obviously, my family living in Illinois, that's extremely close to home. So I understand the severity of it. I understand the seriousness of it. You know, people still come into Costco and they joke about the fact that everybody's bought up all the toilet paper. Where look, there's a certain thing that's happening here where a lot of things are going to start shutting down. I have to imagine that the airports, especially your major metropolitan airports in your cities, these things are going to start getting real barren real quick, to the point where they might end up having to shut them down completely. I'm looking at a O'Hare. I'm looking at a LaGuardia in New York. I'm looking at airports in Atlanta, airports in Miami, Orlando, things of that nature, where you're going to start seeing the numbers dwindle and dwindle. Oil is going to be at an all-time low as far as how much it's costing us right now, because cruise lines are not using oil because they're not going anywhere. Airlines aren't using oil because they're not flying. Like, we're going to have an abundance of oil all of a sudden because we're not consuming it in quick enough. because nobody's going in. People aren't driving. People are scared. People are staying indoors. I think people are just kind of preparing for the inevitable from the standpoint of this is going to hit home. I have to imagine with the 14-day incubation period, can you imagine the amount of people that you come into contact with in 2 weeks, working retail, working any place where the public is going to be? The amount of people that you come into contact with in 2 weeks is insane if you actually stop to think about it. If you look at door counts through a Costco, through a Sam's Club, average door count for a Costco could be anywhere from 200 to 300-400 people an hour or every half hour. So if you think about that concept, if you think about that idea, and if you do that math, that's a staggering amount of people throughout the course of a day. And then you do the math on top of that, and you take into account how many people that is per week that you've come in contact with personally. It's a scary, scary, scary number. So one person truly does have the ability to affect everybody.
This is just, it's mind-boggling, my friend. And, I know he even joked ourselves, the Armageddon is here, but, I don't want to say the Armageddon's here per se, but this is some very, very serious stuff. And, hopefully you're out there doing what you can to protect your families out there, especially if you have older individuals or people that could be very susceptible to it or have pre-existing conditions. I think that's the highest area of concern for people that could contract the disease. And I think that's probably why all these organizations, all these events, all these organizers are saying, you know what, we don't want to put the general public at risk like this, so we're taking the steps necessary in order to go ahead and just try and avoid this all possible, no matter what the financial loss is, because you don't want to be the place, or you don't want to be the event that could cause a widespread disaster of any, I don't want to say biblical proportions, but any disaster of any, health issues like this that what's going on. Because we've seen just going to a church, just going to a synagogue, just going to, a convention, just going to even a smaller event where there's only, 500,000 people. That alone can affect a lot of people. So just imagine what a sporting event or an E3 or a South by Southwest or a music fest in Florida or anything like that could actually do if they had actually gone off as planned.
Exactly. It's just the numbers, again, would just be astronomical as far as who you can affect, who you can see, who you can touch. And the way that this virus is spreading and the manner in which it spreads is the way it's transmitted through droplets and moisture, through a cough, a sneeze. It's scary. And, it's one of the other things that I joked about a little bit earlier in regards to, this pandemic has taught people how to wash their hands. But in all seriousness, you think about how often you wash your hands. You think about how often you spend 20 seconds or more washing your hands. And I wash my hands for just about for everything. Any reason I can wash my hands, I'll wash my hands. But I don't think I ever paid attention to exactly how long I washed my hands. And that's just me being honest. While I always wash my hands, I don't think I ever thought about, did I do it for 20 seconds? Okay. Did I scrub under everything? Did I scrub under my nails? Did I scrub like every inch of my hand? Did I do it? And in focusing on that now, I see how dry my hands have been. I can see how I didn't take that seriously while I washed my hands. I didn't wash my hands every opportunity I got. So as little things where we joke about, people need to learn how to wash their hands, but in all seriousness, people need to learn how to wash their hands and how to do so effectively and not just wash their hands in the way they just had to say, okay, I washed my hands. No, wash your hands. Make sure that you're getting up to your elbows. Rinse, go for 20 seconds vigorously. Like, there are steps that need to be taken. Who the CDC have always been in place. These rules have always been there. It's always said, every poster at every job has always said, wash your hands for 20 seconds at least, vigorously, hot water and soap. But how many people have actually done that on a consistent basis, or do they just wash their hands enough to say that they did it? Now, it's great. A lot of people do. I see you raising your hand.
I'm just saying,
That's
because
awesome.
I'm well known amongst my family, and I was mocked actually before all this stuff happened as being the germaphobe. As someone who would always in church, after greeting everybody and saying peace be with you and all that stuff, immediately run to the restroom and just wash his hands for, like you said, 20 seconds. And I will
Right.
count the 20 seconds. That's because I discovered it about a couple of years ago as far as from the CDC requirements. I'm like, maybe I should go ahead and do that. I'm the sanitizer. I was always the sanitizer guy. I mean, you look in my van right now, I've got the sanitizer and the lotion all right there. It's been there for the past few years because my hands are so extremely dry and cracked because I do sanitize, because I do wash all the time, and I don't use enough lotion. Shame on me for doing that. It's something that I don't want to say I was preparing for this. I just want to say it's just who I was and who I am. And I was mocked by other people for doing it. Now everybody's like, okay, maybe you take it more seriously. And it's not like I'm doing everything perfect, because I know I'm not doing everything perfect on trying to keep and maintain myself and my hygiene. You can always do better. And even if you're doing that, you're just minimizing the odds. You're not eliminating the odds. You're just doing what you can to try and reduce the actual chance of you actually contracting the virus. I could still contract the virus tomorrow. We could be standing next to each other, and you could have the virus, and you could be breathing on me within a period of 3 meters or 6 feet, and I got it. And no matter how many hand washing, I mean, you're just trying to do what you can to prevent everything you can from getting the virus. That's all. I was just trying to do it to chase away the flu and get cold, because I don't like getting the flu. Period.
Right.
No one does, but I'm like a very bad, page. I'm, help me. Did you say you just had the sniffles? Yeah, but I feel bad. I'm gonna die. That's me. That's me.
Absolutely. But, and I've always been the type that I never.
I'm a big baby.
Well, I'm probably a big baby too, but I can say I've never had the flu. I've never experienced a flu. I've had a common cold, and I get sick probably once every 6-7 months. Like I just don't get sick very often. It doesn't hit me the way it hits a lot of people, which I'm very, very grateful for. I've never experienced the flu, which I'm also very, very grateful for. But this does put things in a new perspective for me from the standpoint of I've got to be more vigilant. I've got to ensure that I'm doing the things. And again, me doing the actual counting of the seconds, like I never thought about that before. It never really dawned on me to count for 20 seconds as I washed my hands. I would still wash my hands with hot water and as hot as I could possibly stand and still wash them. But it was never a 20, 30-second count. It was just, okay, go in there, wash your hands and get to what you got to get to. So it's just, it's reinforced a lot of things for me personally. I have to hope that it's done a lot of that for a lot of people in general. And it made you really look at things as simple as washing your hands and taking it to a whole nother level as far as making sure that you're doing it the way it should have been done from the beginning. So shame on me, but I've learned.
And I'm even learning more as well to how to even protect myself and hopefully protect my family even more. And here's hoping everyone out there does start to take this more seriously and does what they can to try and stay healthy, because all we want is the best of health. So you can continue to listen to us right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast. But my friend, before we head on out, we're going to get back on a good note. We're getting back on a cheery note because we're going to play a little game. And because I was thinking about you last week when I was thinking about this, when Kenny Atkinson got fired. And it was actually the day before Kenny Atkinson fired, because that came out of the blue, and I did not know that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving didn't want to play with this guy and all that, because I thought he was a decent coach. He had gotten an underachieving team to the playoffs. I thought he was actually good, because they were this year they weren't performing well, but they're all injured. So okay, let's give it a year with Durant and Irving before we go ahead and say bon voyage and all that. But no, they said bon voyage a lot sooner for him. I wanted to play a game of hot seat, as far as the coaches. Are they on the hot seat or are they not? Are they going to be fired or are they not? So we're going to go through a list of the coaches that are out there in the NBA, and you're going to give me your opinion on this. And I actually was thinking about this before Kenny Atkinson got fired. And I was going to say he was good for at least another year, but so much that I know. But I'm going to go ahead and do this game with you as far as NBA coaches on the hot seat or not on the hot seat. And we're going to go ahead and start with the Eastern Conference first. So, all right, my friend. Lloyd Pierce of the Atlanta Hawks. We're going to go in alphabetical order in each conference. Lloyd Pierce of the Atlanta Hawks. On the hot seat or not?
Ooh, Lloyd Pierce, Atlanta Hawks, hot seat. I'd have to say not hot seat, considering the fact that I just who they have as far as talent wise, I don't know if they were. I don't think they were really expecting to make a whole lot of waves. As I pull up the standings now, I don't think they were expecting to make a whole lot of waves. They're sitting way behind, 33 and a half games behind. So I'm not seeing them making any real noise. Obviously, I don't even see them making the playoffs. But I mean, it's the Eastern Conference. I guess there's always still a chance, but I don't know. I'd have to say I don't think he's hot because I don't think they really expected much of him or that team. Now going into the future, with Trae Young being what he is, I see them starting to want to gain more traction. But right this moment, I don't see that being a hot seat. No.
I actually think a lot more was expected by the team out of them, especially with Trae Young going into his second year. I actually think that they were thinking that they would be stealing maybe the 8th seed from the playoffs. That's what I was feeling at the beginning of the season. That was the vibe I had, that they were thinking about that. Obviously, it's taken a turn for the worse. They have been playing better. But depending on his situation, I think his seat is a little warm. I will give it that.
Yeah.
A little warm.
I give you lukewarm. How about that?
Okay, we'll go with that. Brad Stevens in Boston, I'm going to say he's good at least for another year.
Yeah.
His team has, I think, performed a little tiny bit better than expected. They do have a good core there. I think the hot seat should be more on Danny Ainge for not building an even better team, because they've had for so many years this treasure chest of so many picks and assets and things of that nature. Yeah. I think going forward, I think you're going to see more pressure put on him than Brad Stevens if they don't get to even a higher level, i.e. number 1, number 2 spot in the Eastern Conference and become an NBA title favorite, because they still have a lot of assets and that young core to go off of, but they're not always going to be young. They're not always going to want to stay in Boston if they don't think it's going to work out. So, for me, I think that seat is okay for now for Brad Stevens, but I think the seat will be eventually become a little bit warmer for Danny Ainge if they don't get to that next level, that championship level, which I think they should be getting to. Yes. I mean, they have all the earmarks for a team that should be at that level within the next 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think Brad Stevens' seat is cool. To go if we're gonna go hot seat on. I think his seat's cool to cold. I'm not concerned about Brad Stevens. He had over a 10-game winning streak at the beginning of the year. He had another 6 to 7-game winning streak towards the beginning of this beginning of the first of the NBA season. He had the 10-game winning streak, or 11-game, and I think at the beginning of this year, 2020, he had about a 6 or 7-game winning streak from late January all the way up until about mid February. So I'm not concerned about his seat. But as far as what you mentioned in regards to Danny Ainge, his seat should be boiling. They've been playing this game with Ainge for a long time. I'm excited that the Bulls are finally starting to make some headway as far as moving some presidents and some stuff like that around, because they've been playing that game for a long time too. So Danny Ainge should be well in the hot seat. Well in the hot seat. But Brad Stevens, nah, not so much.
I mean, you did, to his credit, he made a lot of moves to get that treasure trove of all these assets, but there was big trade after big trade done by other teams that he could have definitely been a part of, and he chose not to. So I agree with you that seat's warm right now for Danny Ainge, and how warm it gets is going to be dependent on the Celtics the next 2 seasons.
Agreed.
All right, the next one on our list is Brooklyn and Jacque Vaughn. I mean, he just got his first win as head coach last night with the Lakers. So he's the interim head coach. He doesn't have exactly the greatest resume in the world, because he didn't have a great tenure in Orlando, I believe it was. I'm going to say his seat's very warm, very hot right now, and I think they're just going to team, if Brooklyn is really going to get, keep KD and Kyrie happy, they're going to get a coach that they want, and I'm not sure Jacque Vaughn is going to be that guy. At least I haven't heard anything to that effect. That's just more time.
No, if we're being honest, Jacque Vaughn's seat is probably boiling hot. He's not going to – there's no turnaround this season. So this is what it is. Kyrie going out with injury. Obviously, Kevin Durant not coming back this season at all. No, his seat's hot, because I don't think you're going to have a Kyrie or a Kevin Durant who wants to play for a Vaughn. So, no, I'd agree with you. I think his seat's – actually, I think his seat's hot. Like, I don't think there's anything he can do to save that position, to be honest with you.
Like
He's
Buster
just there for the
Poindexter, it's hot.
yeah, hot. There's no you're not saving that spot. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Next on the list is James Borrego from Charlotte Hornets. I think his seat is cool. I think his team at times has overperformed during the season. A team that actually lacks anything resembling talent. For him to go ahead and have this kind of team right now, they're 22-42, which on the surface doesn't look good at all. But I was thinking that they had one of the worst teams in the NBA, and right now they're playing, I think, at a level that's slightly above what they should be doing. So you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and say his seat is very cool, and he's going to be around for at least another year or two. I think without having his seat judged at all. I think he's doing a good job right there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you in that regards. Being 2 spots behind the 8th playoff spot, I don't see him going anywhere either. It's another underperforming team, and I don't know if they really expected much more. Losing Kemba Walker to not really gain a whole lot of anything. I think that he's probably performed admirably, if not a little bit above what was expected. So yeah, I'd agree with you. I don't see him going anywhere. Now, in regards to Michael Jordan, it's just not his thing, man. I love MJ. I love Mike. He's such a business. He has such an acumen business wise that's just incredible. I just don't think he's the greatest evaluator, and I think it's hard because being a former player, you look for certain traits. But he was also a former player of a bygone era. It's not there anymore. It's not that type of NBA. It's not the type of league. So I just don't think he's got the tools necessary to really put a team together. I don't think he's just built that way. Some people have it and some people don't. I just don't think he's got it. So the coach, no, but Mike,
exactly. And then Mitch Kupchak, he's got a very mixed path with the Lakers. Yeah. So, I mean, his first years there were very good. He obviously engineered the Pau Gasol trade. Then it went downhill after that.
the thievery that was Pau Gasol.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. The seat's very good right now for James Borrego.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Jim Boylan, Chicago Bulls, that guy's roasting. That guy, unfortunately, he is just if Zach LaVine can give any more death looks to him during the course of a game, it'd be unbelievable. But yes, I don't think he's going to last. If he lasts, then the long-running, GM Paxson and those guys are going to go. I think they've been given way more slack than they should have been given. They should have been out a long time ago. Yes. The management company, management team behind Chicago, they should have been out a long time ago. And I think whoever comes in to replace them is going to probably let Jim Boylan go as well.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think I've mentioned this not on this podcast, but I mentioned this with a couple different people before. I think you have to kind of burn it down and start from the beginning, start from the ground up. I think you have a talent like Zach LaVine who was just absolutely wasted in Chicago. He's not happy where he's at. I mean, I think he's happy with Chicago, so to speak, but I don't think he's not happy at all with the coaching staff. He's not happy at all with where the team is at as far as winning, where the team is moving towards in regards to if they're getting better or worse. Chicago has been rebuilding since Jordan left, really. I mean, they've had great moments in regards to Derrick Rose and just great feel-good moments, but they've been mediocre at best outside of a few years with Derrick Rose, and ever since Jordan retired, they just haven't gotten back to that level. And it's sad. It's sad because as Chicagoan, I love the Bulls. I do love the Bulls. While I am a Laker through and through as far as I bleed purple gold, I was born in Chicago, so I have a certain affinity for my hometown Bulls. But to be honest with you, they've been losing more in my lifetime than they've been winning. So I can't really say anything more than Jim Boylan's got to go. Garpax has to go. There's just a lot that needs to change with that front office that starts from the top up and works its way down to that coach.
Yep. Jim Paxson, Gar Hurd, and Jim Boylan, I think, are all gone during the summer.
I hope so. I do.
Okay. And it's something that makes me scratch my head. JB Bickerstaff, who got bumped up after the coach got fired at Cleveland Cavaliers. I understand they've been playing better, but here is a situation again that you and I have talked about in the past with Rob Pelinka. You have some short-term success, so immediately you got to think, I got to sign this guy. So JB Bickerstaff, who has had some success with Cleveland Cavaliers, even though his own track record in the past as a coach is very limited and not very, very good record-wise, he was given an extension. So the interim tag came off him, and he was given an extension. So obviously it's very cool at this point in time, but should have been that cool. Should you just wait to the end of the season and evaluate whether or not he's the guy for you long term?
Well, yeah, you should have. That's definitely something that should have happened. Why they chose to do that, I don't get it. People just have really short memories or really short attention spans, and they just don't pay attention to those kind of details. But no, Bickerstaff, he should not be there. But the question is if his seat's hot or not. The answer to that is I don't think it's hot. I don't think it's hot because I think they had a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think.
Well, they'll be paying for 3 coaches if it was hot.
Yeah, they'd be paying for 3.
They're
exactly.
paying for 2
Tyron,
currently.
Yep, they're paying for Tyron, and who was the other one?
Well, the coach from Michigan, the one that just left.
Oh, right. The Thugs, right? The Thugs coach.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if they're still paying for Tyronn Lue, so they are paying for 3 coaches.
Yeah, they're paying for 3 coaches right now.
Oh my gosh.
So no, I just don't. With them paying for as many coaches as they're paying for right now, they have almost a starting lineup of coaches under their payroll. No, I don't see his seat being hot. I think they're going to be sticking with Bickerstaff for a little while, rather deservedly or not. I don't see him going anywhere, just because of the financial predicament that the Cavaliers have found themselves in post LeBron.
Post LeBron. That's all you need to say.
It's tough, man. You can't when you coach somebody like LeBron, he brings so much attention to your team, and it makes winning so easy that you look like a great coach when you might not be a great coach, but you had LeBron, so he made you that much better. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, what can you say?
What can you say?
What can I say now is that Dwayne Casey, and you got to feel sorry for Dwayne Casey. I mean, he got kicked out. I think so, because you're the guy that took your team to a playoff run, a very good team, and you're gone. The team's still there. Mm-hmm. They get Kawhi, and they win a championship, and you're not there to go ahead and reap the benefits from your own teachings and your own. It seems like you were the equation that was the reason why that they didn't get to where they needed to get. And in exchange, you go to Detroit where you're suffering and suffering. And I'm just going to say his seat is very hot right now. His seat is very hot. And you just got to feel sorry because he doesn't have talent. And the talent that he does have, is hurt. Blake Griffin is no longer the player he once was. Even when he's on the floor, and Andre Drummond just wasn't a fit for whatever it is you're doing in today's NBA. I mean, they've got some nice young talent, but Dwayne Casey, I don't think is going to be coaching them much longer. No, and
what that really boils down to is just an unfortunate set of circumstances. Because he's a serviceable coach. I don't think he's on the high end of the spectrum, but I certainly don't think he's a Bickerstaff bad as regards to coaching wise. But the truth is, players play. And coaches coach, and unfortunately, he just doesn't have the personnel to really make any big splash in this current iteration of if you will, of the NBA. So yeah, I would agree. I think his seat's hot, deservedly so. No, but I think his seat's hot anyways.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah.
Nate McMillan, Indiana Pacers. I mean, it all depends on your expectations for the Pacers. Yeah. I'm going to say he's going to be given another year. How about you?
Yep. I would agree with that. I think they're pretty much in line with what you expected them to hit. I think Indiana wanted to be better than what they were, but the truth be told, if you look at their roster, it's just not. There's nothing on their roster that suggests elite level in the Eastern Conference.
And will Oladipo ever get back to the level that he was before his injury? That's very questionable at this point in time. He's not even come close to that player since he's come back from the injury, and. We'll give it. I think we should give it at least another year. I think if Oladipo maybe have a summer of rehabilitation to get him going again. Maybe he can catch that fire, but we'll have to wait and see. And I think Nate McMillan deserves another year in the chair. So.
I do too, just for what he was even able to do back in Portland in his time with them. But you look at the situation like with Victor Oladipo, like you alluded to, he's not the player that he was prior to injury, and it makes you wonder if it's a matter of him not being that player because he was injured, and now he has seen life after basketball. Like, he's become a record. He's put out like a mixtape or a rap album or something. And you can see he started to catch interest of things outside of basketball. And it makes you wonder if the injury forced him to start looking at life in a different perspective or a different prism and starting to think about what happens with life after basketball. Or if I can't play basketball, what do I have to fall back on? It just kind of makes you wonder where his headspace is at. But he's not even close to who he was prior to injury. And I don't know if he's ever going to be. I don't know if he has the same desire, to be honest with you. I don't know if he has the same interest.
The next two are pretty easy when you got Eric Spoelstra, who's a lifer in Miami.
Yeah.
He's doing a pretty good job in Miami. The team is exceeding expectations. Then you have Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee. Obviously, the team might close out with 65, 67 wins. The only thing is, if it ends up like his tenure in Atlanta, where they won 60 games, and I think it was a year later, or they started to go ahead and sell off. If Milwaukee starts to sell off assets, if they don't hit the heights that they need to, or the owner says you're spending too much money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, maybe 2-3 years down the line, his job may be in jeopardy then, similar to what it was in Atlanta. But right now, he's got to be looking pretty. So
yeah, he's not going nowhere. That dog ain't going to hunt. He's fine.
Yes. But then we come to the New York Knicks. Mike Miller, I feel sorry for him because he might be just this blip that, he might be forgotten about in the annals of New York Knicks coaching history because he'll just, nobody knows really who he is and how good a coach he is. And I don't think you're going to be able to find it out long term. The Knicks, I mean, they just got in someone else to run the basketball operations, Leon Rose.
Yep.
And I don't think that he's going to go ahead and put in new GM and without putting in a new coach alongside of it. So as long as Dolan stays out of the way, which is not going to happen, I think Mike Miller is going to go ahead and be out, and because he is very hot, simply because of the fact that he's got a job that pretty much at this point in time nobody wants. But somebody with a whole bunch of money is going to get come next season.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, is if I'm Dolan, I wouldn't let him go per se. I don't have to pay him a lot of money, and I'm clearly not ready to be a contender. I wouldn't let him go personally.
But it's all about high profile.
Exactly, it's all about high profile. And again, we're talking about Dolan, so yeah, he's gone. Hot seat or not, he's hot. Yeah.
And that's through no fault of his own. So.
No, it has nothing. He was just he's very similar to the guy taking over right now in the other team we just talked about. Just just happened to be there. You just were there. Sorry,
there
buddy.
You go. One minute you're holding the clipboard, and next you're told to go ahead and run the team. It's like, okay.
but if you're holding the clipboard, essentially you should be preparing. Just like if you're a bench player, you should always be preparing to take over that starting spot at any given time. So, he should be ready, but truth be told, he's just not high profile enough to be the Knicks head coach.
Next on the list is Steve Clifford, and I think he is on the hot seat for two reasons.
Okay.
One is that Orlando's had two very mediocre 8th place, a sub 500, 1 round, and they're gone type scenarios. And number two is his health. He was recently hospitalized, and I think that this is not the first time I think he's been hospitalized during his tenure as Orlando head coach. And I think it's just going to come to the point where the team maybe will work something out with him and maybe give him a place in the organization. Right. But I think also as well, it's part performance, part health, I think, for the team overall, because that team is just, it's in that defunctory zone. It's in that purgatory. And they've reached that purgatory, and there's no way to escape unless they sell off some assets, because I don't think their ceiling should be any higher with what they currently have. But they don't want to do a massive sell-off, so they're right in this purgatory area. And I think the coach is usually the one first responsible for that. And I don't think he's going to be removed entirely or fired entirely. I think he'll be placed in another part of the organization simply because, like I said, the combination of the health aspects and whatnot. So I want to hear your thoughts on Steve Clifford for Orlando. He's not that he's done a bad job per se. I think he's done as much as you can really with that kind of talent. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
I think it's almost going to be a we got to do this for you type deal because agreed. I don't think that considering the talent that he has in that team, he's done a bad job at all. I mean, still sitting at 8th in the Eastern Conference right now. Your most high profile player is Aaron Gordon. Like, I just don't feel like he's done a bad job with the team that he has. But I almost feel like, as you mentioned, health issues being what they are, and the fact that they're going to have to start selling off assets to really even make a splash because they need the money. I think they're going to have to. Plus, again, I think he's got bigger things that he needs to focus on. And I think sometimes you have to do what's best they talk about doing what's best for the player as far as, hey, I'm going to sit you out because you need to sit out. I think they might have to do what's best for him, saying, hey, we got to figure something else out for you. Because right now it's just, you can't be what we need you to be because you're not healthy. You can't perform at this level right now. For whatever the reason is, you just can't perform at this level. So we need to figure something else out for you. So I think his seat is pretty warm. I won't say hot yet because, again, they are still sitting at 8th in the East. Again, we're talking about the East, but considering his team and the roster that he has, that's still pretty decent. So I'd say I wouldn't say it's hot, but I would say it's pretty warm.
I would say it's a little hotter, simply the fact that, it's 8th in the East, but look at their overall record, sub 500, 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
It's not. Well, actually, I don't know what they last year. I think they were just at 500 or right thereabouts. So it's not. I don't see a point where they get a ton better right now unless they make some serious changes. And unfortunately, usually the coach is usually the first thing that goes. I think in the case he won't be outright fired, but I think he'll be moved. And like you said, it probably will be for his best interest because coaching on an 82-game basis does not look like it's going to be great for some. I mean, Tyronn Lue, he had to take time off because of his health. And you look at other individuals, and it's something that if you're not physically up to it, it's not best for you long term. So Yep. There is someone else, though. Our next person on the list for the Philadelphia 76ers, Brett Brown. He's sitting on a roasting. If you could say it right now, he's just sitting. I don't want to say the seventh layer of hell type fire and all that, but it is roasting right now because the team cannot win on the road. The team has really underperformed expectations. I think, a lot of people were looking at, including yours truly, the Philadelphia 76ers as a finals contender. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's nowhere near the case. You have Ben Simmons, you have Joel Embiid. They're like, oil and water right now. They're the way they're playing with, when they are on the floor, even though both are injured at this point in time, when they're on the floor, there's talk about how they don't play well with each other. And, I just think right now, it's a bad situation, and I think that right now the first thing that's going to go, and Elton Brand, the GM of the 76ers, I think he's just ready to hit that eject button for Brett Brown. Yeah. I just don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when.
Yeah, it's not been a good mix in Philly, huh? It just hasn't seemed to work with any of the personnel movements and Jimmy Butler leaving. It's just Brett Brown is definitely on the roasting hot out the frying pan into the fire type hot seat right now. And I don't even know if I could even really say it's so much his fault. Sometimes you have people that are better at melding talent and personalities and meshing that talent and personalities, and sometimes you have people that are just not that great at it. And truth be told, I just don't think that's his area of expertise. And when you have deficiencies in that regard, you've got to have people around you who can patch up those deficiencies, and I just don't feel like he has the coaching staff that can patch up those personnel deficiencies that he clearly is lacking in regards to how to make things work. I mean, you look at somebody like if you think about Larry Brown, for as great as he was as an NBA head coach, he was not good at making personalities match. He was not good with the Allen Iverson. He wasn't able to really reach through Iverson at a time where Iverson needed that reach through. So I don't know what it is about Philly, but they can't seem to get their star players to ever act right in Philly as a head coach. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna work.
I don't think it's gonna work either. So it's gone for Brett Brown.
Yeah, man.
Nick Nurse, he is on ice. His share is ice cold, for obvious reasons. So that's not even really going to detail on that one. Scotty Brooks, Washington Wizards have played a little bit above expectations. Very good offensive team, horrible defensively. They're still 9th place in the Eastern Conference, so they're not. They obviously don't have a very good record. I'm still going to say that they're going to look for a change just because to get someone new in there. I think, I know they're a notoriously cheap organization when it concerns head coaches. I'm going to say Scotty Brooks, even though he's done an okay job, because I thought Washington really didn't have much in the way of talent outside of Bradley Beal either. I think that he's just going to probably be on the move as well. Maybe it'd be his own choosing, maybe to get another spot somewhere else.
I think you almost need to, for the simple fact of they've still got almost like they have to move assets as well. Bradley Beal's taking up money. John Wall's taking up money. I think you kind of need to, because the truth is the players are still going to play and they're still going to want to try to make money off of John Wall and Bradley Beal. They're going to still want to try to win off of those two, even though I think it's been proven by far that they just can't seem to do it together. I don't know. Sometimes the guards work great and sometimes the guards don't work great together. And I think those two just are shown that they can't do it. But I think he's going to be another one that he's just the result of the fact that they need to start moving assets and need to start saving money where they can. I think he's going to be one of those ones that is a result of that, unfortunately. And I like Scott Brooks. I like Scott Brooks a lot from his time. He was the Milwaukee Bucks head coach for a while, wasn't he?
And Oklahoma City as well.
Oklahoma City as well. Yeah. So I think Scott Brooks is a great coach. But they're gonna fall a sword somewhere, and I think it's gonna start with Scott Brooks.
Let's get over to the Western Conference right now. I'm gonna go ahead and say that these first three are pretty easy to call. Rick Carlisle, the Dallas Mavericks, Michael Malone of Denver Nuggets, and Steve Kerr, Golden State Warriors. Unless Michael Malone, in the case of Denver Nuggets, they're swept in the first round, I think that all three are very safe in their jobs. It really comes down to Mike D'Antoni, who you're not in love with at all. I know he's gone. You know he's gone. He knows he's gone. Everyone knows he's gone. It may not be essentially for 100% for coaching reasons, but his situation, the fact his extension was not renewed, before the season, it just all points are signing that he's gone either which way. And it looks like it's going to be a very funky offseason for Houston. Daryl Morey, as I told you before, if Daryl Morey at least stays there, it's going to be because Houston wins a championship. I don't think they won't win a championship. I think we pretty much established that they're probably not going to win a championship. And because of his comments on China and the way it affected the NBA, I think that Houston's just waiting for an excuse to get him gone, and Mike D'Antoni will be going alongside of it.
I don't have any love for Mike D'Antoni. You know this. This has not been a secret. I have not made this not publicly known that I don't like the guy as a coach. I just don't. I don't particularly care for him as a head coach at all. I think that his philosophies are a bit radical. Obviously, his 8-second or less offense that he ran in Phoenix years and years ago against our lovely Lakers was extremely revolutionary at the time and was exciting. It definitely made their games fun to watch, but it's not sustainable. It's not a winning formula, and it's been proven time and time again, unless you have certain personnel who are named Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, that 8-second offense is just not gonna do it. You don't have enough talent to sustain that. They're just not good enough. So yeah, the thing is, I don't know if Houston's actually gonna get rid of him. Unless
he doesn't have an extension, so he's a free agent.
Yeah, he doesn't have an extension. And yes, he's a free agent, but that they could typically be using that as a bargaining tool as well. Maybe his asking price is too high. I don't know. But if I have any say so in it, nah, he's done, bro. He's just the product that he produces is exciting to watch. But if I'm somebody that's looking for our team to win a championship, and truth be told, Harden's not getting younger. He was never a super athletic player to begin with. Westbrook is pure athleticism with a little bit of skill, but it's just not meshing. And you have a coach in D'Antoni who believes in pushing his players and pushing his players and pushing his players. And, okay, we'll just get the ball inbound, keep going. Don't mess up the flow of the game. Don't disrupt the flow. Don't disrupt the flow. Don't foul them. It's just not winning basketball. And if you're looking to win, Mike D'Antoni is just not. If you're looking for exciting basketball, yay. If you're a young team that needs a head coach that's got a bit of a profile to him, and, Mike D'Antoni is that guy. But if you're looking to win, he's just not. That's not him. That's not him at all.
Next two on our list are in LA, Doc Rivers and Frank Vogel. You can say they're pretty safe at this point in time. Taylor Jenkins has done a very good job at Memphis. They are playing well above expectations and I think they're going to capture the 8th seed. I understand that they have the hardest schedule the rest of the way, but they are, I think, 3.5 games still above whoever's next on the list. And I think they're going to do whatever it is they can to keep that 8th spot. I think I know New Orleans has been a favorite to go ahead to pass them by. Portland's, with Dame Lillard and all that, a chance to pass them by. But 3 games with about 18, 19 games left, that's really hard to go overcome. I mean, there would have to be a massive fail, even with the Memphis playing the most the hardest schedule, I should say, for the rest of the season, because you got to remember on the tail end, if they are going to be playing a lot of playoffs teams on the tail end, a lot of those playoff teams will be doing some load management. So if they've already clinched their position. So I think that they are going to get the 8th seed, and Taylor Jenkins is one of the reasons why he's brought a great enthusiasm to the team. I think he keeps his job. His job is very cool at this time as well.
Yep. You hit that on the head. I think he's not going anywhere.
Yep. Next on the list is Ryan Saunders. I think I don't know. I think he's pretty safe to at least go another year. I think he's going to be going ahead and give a chance for Minnesota. Although there could be the mindset, we got D'Angelo, we have Karl Anthony Towns. We got to go ahead and get somebody more experienced in the position. But I actually think they're going to give Ryan Saunders another chance.
Yeah, you sure?
I'm leaning cool, but I wouldn't. I'm saying that within the context, I wouldn't be 100% surprised if a big name coach becomes available. They'll want to go ahead and attach him to Minnesota. Excuse me.
I'm gonna ride with you on that one, but I'm gonna defer to your standing on that one.
Let's call Ryan Saunders a fail-safe.
Okay. All right. Fail-safe. Copy.
Yeah. In case they can't, in the case somebody doesn't drop out of the sky, that is, like, oh wow, we got to get this coach.
Yeah. They got to be substantially better to upend his job. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
I mean, I'm not talking about someone like David Fizdale, take this.
No,
and all that. Yeah. I'm talking about a real big name, that drops out.
Like if Phil Jackson drops out the sky, he might.
Well, even among his contemporary coaches, if somebody, big name, leaves his job, like your friend D'Antoni. If D'Antoni leaves and is interested in the Minnesota position, then that might change the story. But yeah.
Hey, while we're talking about D'Antoni, you remember Kobe Bryant used to wear number 8, and remember he said that his reason was because his favorite Italian player was Mike D'Antoni. Now, I didn't hear that until Mike D'Antoni was his coach. Do you really think that was his real reason for wearing number 8? Like, I'm just curious. I'm asking. I don't know.
I know he was a decent player in Italy, and Kobe was from that area. Obviously with his father, when his father played in Italy on that team. I'm going to say yes, but with a very, very, hesitancy on that.
I don't know. I was just curious. It's just inquiring minds wanted to know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously for tragic reasons, we can't find that answer out 100%.
Can't ask him.
Yeah, so we just have to leave it at that.
Yep, leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Okay, next on the list, we've got Alvin Gentry. And I'm going to say this, if they don't make the playoffs, Alvin Gentry goes. If they make the playoffs, he might be given another chance. He's a good coach. I'm not saying he's not a bad coach. I'm just saying with that talent on the roster, even with Zion being injured, should not have lost as many games as they did. I mean, one individual like that, even though he's very good, is a rookie, you should have had enough talent on that team, which I think they do, to at least been at a higher level than they were before Zion came back. And I think that Alvin Gentry, if they don't make the playoffs, is gonna take the fall.
Well, I don't know, because granted, you've got some names on that team, but I don't think any of those names have really been proven winners. I mean, you look at Lonzo Ball, you look at Josh Hart, you look at Brandon Ingram. Obviously, all those guys are former Los Angeles Lakers. But then you even look at someone like a JJ Redick, who is not a journeyman of the NBA, but really hasn't had a winning season in the NBA in regards to just a high percentage. So if you look at the roster really doesn't complement Alvin Gentry. So while I don't know if I agree that his seat is hot or warm or anything of that nature, I feel like he really hasn't had a sustainable team and a really sustainable blueprint or sample size that we can say, okay, you've had a legit player in blah, 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 and you're not winning, right? Because again, your highest profile player on here is Zion Williamson, but then after that you go Ingram, Ball, JJ Redick, Drew Holiday, who we don't know if he's a combo guard or a one. I'm not in love with that team. And I feel like he's done okay with the team he has, but I just don't feel like he really has had an opportunity to really show his chops.
They've got a lot of talent, but a lot of mixed mash talent.
It's hodgepodge, patchwork. It's patchwork. Yeah.
It doesn't fit very well. It looks great on paper, but doesn't fit very well in a real world scheme.
Yeah. So I just don't know if it's not really his fault for that. You got to coach with what you have, and I just don't feel like he's had ample team, ample time, ample talent to really do that.
Well, one coach I thought would be gone is Billy Donovan, but he has done a very good job with the team, and they're playing well above expectations. And they even have a bigger treasure trove. They've got a pretty much the biggest treasure trove of assets and picks, and they've got 10,000 picks coming up in the next decade or so. And they are playing well above expectations. So I think his seat is not even warm at all. I think he's right now, at least in the short term, he's looking very good at this point in time.
Yep. Completely agree with that one. Completely agree. He's good.
I was surprised. I thought he was going to be gone.
I thought so too.
Monty Williams, he just started there, so they're probably going to give him another year.
Yeah, he's got to pass.
Yeah, Terry Stotts, Portland Trailblazers, up and down. It seems like he has one great year. He has one not so great year. One great year, not so great. It all depends on if Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. I think CJ is probably going to be traded over the course of the summer, but it all depends on if Dame long term wants to stick with Terry Stotts. I think that's probably the key factor.
I think so too. And when you look at the talent that he has, as far as the Arizas, the Dame Lillards, the CJ McCollum, the Hassan Whiteside, who is kind of shrunk since leaving Miami, which is really weird. As well as my boy Melo. I just don't think he has really made this team into what they need to be. I think you've got a lot of talent. This is one of the teams that I think you have a lot of talent on. I think you got a lot of talent, a lot of untapped potential on this team, and I just don't know if he's the guy to bring it out of these guys, to be honest with you. It just doesn't seem like he's got it. So with this one, I would say his seat should be warm, if not warm.
There you go.
Hot warm.
Yeah. He won't be cold right about now because his seat is pretty warm.
Yeah, his seat's pretty warm. Yeah.
There you go. All right, Mr. Luke Walton, first year. They played okay at times for a team that's had a lot of injuries. and some other times they just looked outright bad. I think the expectation was you had a team that was on the verge of the playoffs with their previous head coach. Then you fire the head coach and bring Luke in there expecting a little bit better, and you got worse. I'm going to say still, because of the fact that he is just his first year, he's going to be given another shot. Unless Vlade is fired, which could very well happen. If Vlade is fired, then I think all bets are off. But I think right now he's good.
Man, I love Luke Walton. I really do. But
so does my wife, which always concerns me. But
I love him as a Laker. I love him as a former
I didn't
Laker.
say she was. I didn't say it was as a former Laker. I just, he used to be like, woo.
Okay, well, I am talking about me, and I love him as a Laker. But here's the truth. The truth is, I just don't think he was ever that good of a coach. I think he lucked his way into both those head coaching jobs in Sacramento and Los Angeles, having the Golden State Warriors be his team that he was the default coach of when Steve Kerr went out with his back injury. I think that I could probably coach the Golden State Warriors as well as Luke Walton did, because you got the Golden State Warriors, you have the Splash Brothers, you have
it was like 25-3 or something. Some gaudy record.
I mean, yeah, it was an incredible record and it was great. But I don't think that makes you a great head coach because of a team like that. I think what Steve Kerr has done in Golden State this year, keeping that team, obviously they still have the worst record in the West. I think they're the worst record in the NBA or just the Western Conference. I know they're the worst record in the Western Conference.
Who? Sacramento?
No, Golden State. Steve Kerr.
Golden State. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So
whole NBA.
In the whole NBA. So I what Steve Kerr has been able to do as far as keeping that team relatively stable throughout this rebuild year is something to be said with Golden State. But Luke Walton, if he would have had Golden State's team, I don't think they would have been stable. I think they would have lost even more games. I just don't think that they would even be a talking point. Saying that, I just don't feel. I just don't feel like Luke Walton was ever that good of a coach. I feel like he lucked his way into that position in LA. He lucked his way into that position in Sacramento. He is the definition of applying for that job that you shouldn't get and getting it anyways, even though you weren't really qualified for that job. He's the definition of, I'm gonna give it a shot anyways and see what happens. And somebody actually said yes. So while I feel like his seat should be hot because it's just starting, as you mentioned, I don't see him going anywhere. But you give this another year, or as you said, if Vlade is fired,
all bets can be off. All bets can be off. Well, our list ends here with two coaches that I think, one may not be so safe, and that's just because it's his own doing. And that's going to be Greg Popovich, San Antonio, if he wants to turn over the reins. I know he has another year left on his contract, but he might want to go ahead and bail out and retire early to give it over to Tim Duncan. We've seen him, take a game off to let Tim Duncan coach over the past 2 weeks here, and I think that's not by accident. I think that's something for the future. I would have personally liked Becky Hammon to be given that opportunity, but it looks like Tim Duncan is going to be given that opportunity when Greg Popovich retires. So we're just waiting to see when it is. I think it actually could be starting this summer. I think he is going to leave this summer. Not something I know, perhaps, or maybe because obviously with the question of the coronavirus and the Olympics is concerned, because I know he's going to be part of that as well. And I just think at this point in time, maybe enough's enough, and I think he might retire this season and not the next season after that.
Well, if he's gonna be here, is not the same thing as if his seat's hot or cold.
Well, no, his seat's ice cold.
Seat's cold. Yeah, okay, all right. So to answer
he's a lifer.
Yeah, he's a lifer. His seat's cold. The complete opposite of hot. But I would agree with you. I think the writing is on the wall. I think he is. I think he's ready as well. I think we've seen him. While he's always been very, very candid, he's always been a very open coach and just very opinionated, and he hasn't been one to mince words. He's not that guy that's politically correct. He's not the guy that won't say what he's feeling, and I've always appreciated that about him as a coach and as somebody that's admired his ability to keep a team winning for sustainability for as long as they have. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs had been the model of consistency for a decade, decades, 20 years. They've been the model of consistency. So I think it's time. I think he's earned it. I think it's fitting that it would be Tim Duncan that gets that spot. I agree with you. I think Becky Hammond should. But to have been a lifer Spur the way Tim Duncan was, I kind of would lean more towards Timmy. Call that the Lakers effect, as far as wanting to keep Lakers in office and Lakers in coaching positions and Lakers in high end spots on the team. I think Timmy's kind of earned that right. We'll go on to see if he does, in fact, retire after this season, if he's ultimately the best choice. But I think because of what Tim's done for the Lakers, for the Spurs organization, I think he deserves that spot.
Well, last but not least is Quinn Snyder. And Utah has, I don't want to say they underperformed, but they kind of little teeny bit underperforming. Yeah. They've been hot and cold at various points in time of the season. Obviously, Mike Conley, whether or not he's going to be the long-term answer as much as everybody thought he would be, because everybody thought, oh, yeah, they got Mike Conley. Oh, that's going to be a great fit. And for the most part, it hasn't, although he's been playing well recently. Quinn Snyder, if they don't reach a level where they think the team should be, I think his seat is warm at this point in time.
Yep. I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think you said they've been hot and they've been cold, and you go right in between that and it's warm. I think that's where you see Quinn Snyder sitting as the Jazz's head coach. Yeah, I agree. I think it's just warm right now. I don't think it's hot though. I think he's just, it's a little uncomfortable. He might be adjusting his tie a little bit. It's getting a little hot.
Exactly. Well, he's got that slick back look, so maybe it's become all the heat that's coming down him.
Yeah, he does.
Well, that's our list of the hot seat and not so hot seat for the NBA coaches out there. Thank you for participating, TJ, on that, to do that out at you at the last minute like that. And I appreciate you cooperating on that. If you have your thoughts out there on what we talked about with the coronavirus, the NBA hot seats, the Lakers, their future, should they go after the NBA's best record and all that, let us know if you have any questions or comments on that. You can let us know on our YouTube channel, Lakers Fast Break. Let us know on social media at Lakers Fast Break on Facebook, and you can also do it at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, or you can send us an email, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. If you get a chance, check us out every week on Tuesday nights at 9, RTF Sports Network, the Discover Community Network, and then, of course, also you can catch us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you can, leave us that 5-star review. It really helps us out and also gets us more aware in the eyes of Laker fans everywhere. But before we head on out, my friend, I know you're also affiliated, when you can make it, on an appearance for Voice from the Underground. Let everybody know what goes on with Voice from the Underground, because if you didn't, and I didn't give you that opportunity, I know I'd hear it from a good friend, Jason Dutch.
Yes. Voice of the Underground podcast is an awesome podcast where we get to talk about all the fun things: politics, sports, pop culture, movie references, which I guess fall into pop culture. We really kind of talk about anything because it's our show and that's what we do. I, alongside with Jason Dutch and Big Kaz, have a great time kind of talking about a lot of things, and we can get a little preachy because we're all very, very passionate. All three of us, for various reasons, have our own areas of expertise. So we're all very, very passionate about those particular areas. So they make for some very, very spirited conversation. We have a lot of great guests. Gerald has been on multiple times. He's kind of the unofficial fourth member of Voice from the Underground, the podcast.
Oh, no, don't you affiliate with me.
He just doesn't like to do it, but he's like the unofficial fourth guy. So
I just appreciate any time I'm on. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. But we always have a great time. I really enjoy getting to be able to do that with those guys. And I think one of the great things that we've had through Voice from the Underground is we've developed a great friendship. We were all associates before. We all knew each other through roundabout way. We knew somebody that knew each other. So while we were all familiar, I think we've developed a great, great friendship. And I think that's the part that's most fun about that, is getting to do that podcast with a great group of guys who has a great way of looking at things in life and is not scared to voice those opinions, and is not scared to even, I don't want to say backtrack, but even have the dialogue to where they could be swayed. If you can prove to me that I'm wrong, then I'm at least willing to listen to you. And I think that's the important thing. A lot of people aren't willing to even listen. And with Voice from the Underground, the podcast, we while we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of listening as well. So it's a lot of fun. Great podcast, and couldn't have asked it done with a better group of guys, to be honest with you.
That is Voice from the Underground, the podcast. You got to catch it everywhere you can get your podcast. Just listen to it to hear not only the great advice on cigars that Big Haas gives out, but when they talk about politics, pop culture, sports, whatever it is that's on their mind, and topical movies, things of that nature. And of course, you could also hear actually Jason Dutch stress out over the course of a 90-minute point of time, when he's talking to you, all of you guys, and whatever great guests that they have on, including me. Well, I'm not so great, but guests. But
come on,
yeah, well, But it is Voice from the Underground. You got to catch it today on Voice, wherever you get your podcast. And then also the Pop Culture Cosmos on every Monday and Friday. We talk about the current events going on, the latest news and trends of pop culture. Obviously, coronavirus is there affecting pop culture. Just heard the NAB show, National Association of Broadcasters, just got canceled as well. So we'll be talking about all that great stuff, both on and off, concerning the coronavirus and all that when it comes to the Pop Culture Cosmos every Monday and every Friday as well. Yeah. All right, my friend, this has been an extra special long episode. I didn't even know it was going to happen. I'm glad you came and you say, hey, I want to talk now. I want to do it right now. I want to talk all the stuff that's going on out there, and also the scary stuff too. It was worth it, my friend, because anytime I get a chance to sit down and chew the fat with you, whether it's Lakers or any of these topical issues, it's always great to hear your insight, and I look forward to doing it again real soon.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate the time, and thanks for being so available. Because I was like, ooh, I need to talk to Joe. I got to talk to Joe right now.
Well, that's what I always ask you. Let me know when you're ready. I will try to make myself available as long as I'm not online at Costco to get into Costco.
Well, I'll tell you what. You just told him TJ said you had to go, and they'll hold your spot.
No, they'll tell me who. He's at what store?
All the way in what state? Man, screw that guy.
Exactly. So you wait in the back of the line. That's what I heard so many times. No, the back of the line is way over there to get in the store, to wait for the water, wait for the TV, wait for the paper towels, wait for this, wait for that.
But in all honesty, while Costco may be notorious for having long lines at times, Costco is known for getting those lines down quickly. So while you may be in a line, you're not going to be in that line a whole long time. Like Costco, our cashiers are very, very efficient at what they do.
Yes.
And they're awesome at what they do as far as getting you in and out as quickly as possible. And believe you me, when we see the long lines, it makes us just as not irritated, but just as hungry to get you guys out as you guys are hungry to get out. We don't want you sitting there giving us the death stare all afternoon. So we want you guys going home too.
I wish I could say the same thing when I'm at Disney World, but that's a different story.
Yeah, it's a different story. But
they're not as hungry to keep me out of that line.
No, they want you there. Wait.
Yeah, they want me there all day long. Well, all right, my friend. It's been great talking to you. Can't wait to talk to you real soon. A lot of stuff going on this week, starting with Houston and going forward, matchups against Denver, Utah, back-to-back coming up in the near future. So we'll be talking about that. Obviously, the prospect of the Staples Center being empty at some point in time real soon could be a very real possibility, and all NBA arenas for that matter. We're going to be talking about that. And plus, you know what? It's also going to be March Madness in some semblance with or without crowds, most likely.
Is it, though? Is it March Madness without the crowd?
Okay, let's call it the NCAA tournament. How about that? Let's call it the NCAA tournament.
All right.
I bet, if that comes around and you're able to come on next week right after the tournaments take place, I want to hear your thoughts on exactly who you are leaning towards, because this year has been very good for college basketball fans, in my opinion, because the fact is it's been not just one big favorite. It looks like Kansas, but it's not a huge, tremendous favorite. It looks like it's been a more wide open race than most other years. So I kind of like that aspect.
Okay, all right. You might be onto something. Now I'm gonna need your help though, because tomorrow is the day that these wisdom teeth come out. So I'm gonna need your thoughts. I'm gonna need your prayers, bud, because this is This is not going to be fun. Let me tell
I hear you.
I'm not looking forward to this.
Okay, so that's right. So I would tell you what, I will give you the chance to get some rest. Let's give you a couple weeks off here. But, my prayers are with you. As I said before, my thoughts are with you, especially with everybody also out there as well. Stay healthy. We're thinking about you. TJ, my best to you as well. As someone who experienced what you're about ready to go through, and I experienced it in November. Yeah, fun times are not ahead for you, my friend. I play it real at you, my friend. Sorry.
I appreciate it. I'm a tough cookie, though. We'll see.
Okay. Well, all my best to you, and don't try the family nuts. Just do what you can to try and get yourself better, and come back here real soon as soon as you can.
Oh,
please.
absolutely.
You're always welcome back. As the main man, I just want to hear your thoughts again coming up soon on the Lakers and going forward as we gear up for a nice playoff run. Let's hope. With all the ever-changing stuff that's going on in the world, please, great distraction is how the Lakers are playing. As long as they don't lose against the Nets or something like it, I'll tell you that much. But we'll be talking more about that when you come back on, when you're ready to come back onto the Lakers Fast Break podcast.